this technology coming in to take my job? We're seeing that right now with AI. And what has been proven time and time again is no, it doesn't take your job. It lets you do your job better. We have Vanessa Anderson here today, and she's the CEO of leasing automation platforms. 70% of prospective tenants are searching for spaces outside of business hours, and that 65% of prospective tenants rent with the first property to respond to them. Right now, we convert from a lead to a scheduled showing at 51% nationwide. Right now, when leads are really low, we're seeing leads in free fall decline for 5 straight years. And I think the AI agent is going to enhance that conversion rate so you can do more with less. It all leads up to having that prospective renter have the best first experience and first impression of you and your team as possible. It's essentially setting the relationship as the property manager and resident moving forward.
Welcome to the SFR She-Suite, where we spotlight women shaping the future of our industry. Hello, my name is Mendy Seegar. I am co-host, and I'm also the EVP of Strategy and Business Development at First Rate Field Services.
Hey everybody, I'm Tonya Odell. I'm Mindy's co-host here for the SFR She-Suite and also the Regional VP for E-Premium Renters Insurance for the Single Family Division. And you guys, we are very excited today to welcome a special guest. We have Vanessa Anderson here today, and she's the CEO of leasing automation platforms for ShowMojo and Tenant Turner. She's been in the industry for a long, long time, and you guys just give a warm welcome for Vanessa today.
Yay! Welcome. Today we're going to be diving into the intersection of leadership and innovation and AI and property management. And that is why you, Vanessa, are here with us today. So tell us a little bit about your journey and then catch us up to where you are today.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me on the show. I'm really excited, and it's so nice to be here. A little bit about me. I mean, my career in real estate really started when I was growing up. My dad is a broker owner. He owned both a law firm and a real estate brokerage. And so I really grew up with that kind of in an entrepreneurial environment in an SMB business. And he put me and my sister to work probably at age 11. And my sister is now an attorney, and I had a career in real estate. So we were both very impacted by that. But that was really what, interested me in the industry was managing his portfolio of single family rentals, and kind of working with that, tangible investment. And I just really enjoyed it. And, he taught me kind of the good and the bad of running a business. And I think that has stuck with me throughout my career. So, then I really started my official career on the institutional ownership side. So I was at 2 real estate private equity funds where I kind of cut my teeth in both acquisitions and asset management. But also, I think that experience really showed me, especially at the time, now closing in on 20 years ago, some of the inefficiencies of the industry. And at the time in particular, they were very slow to adopt technology. And so that's really grew my passion. I'm a very efficient person, very focused on efficiencies. And so I was fueled by this. I was like, there has to be a better way, right? We can't just always work 100 hours and do this manually and have everything make sense. There's got to be more repeatable ways to do this. And that's really what inspired me to transition my career into tech. And so really since around 2014, I've been at that intersection of technology and real estate. And I have bounced in and out of roles, both at tech providers where we're building that technology, as well as in service roles where I'm deploying that technology. And so I spent some time at early stage venture-backed companies. I was at Guaranteed Rate, the mortgage lender, for 4 years, and then landed at PropTech about 2 years ago as COO. And I took over as the CEO this fall, back in October.
That's
Well, that's
exciting.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the SFR world, as you know, when you talk about like back in 2014, I mean, the adaptation of technology was like just a snail's pace, and I feel like that around 14, 15, it's like there were some companies that were emerging that had some innovation but a lot of, especially the third party management companies, I feel like, that was really scary for them then. They're used to kind of a handshake mentality and doing everything face to face. And I think automating processes and procedures, and it was tough to swallow for you know, I don't want to say the old school mentality, but the processes and procedures that were built for people, back and forth. They might
Well,
be
people aren't
inefficient,
used
but
to change. They don't like change. Like, oh, well, this is how I've done it. This is how I'm used to doing it. And I kind of, I empathize so much with you, Vanessa. I remember out in the fields where I'm doing reports at all the properties that I'm going to look at and having to, type my report in and then load all the photos and the report, and have to load everything from my phone to my computer and then email. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this. This is insane. So I feel that frustration I used to on a daily basis and still do, always looking for better ways to do things.
There's always better ways. I think, you can take that mindset from 20 years ago where tech was pretty sparse and, tech and specifically, B2B SaaS was starting to hit other industries and was slower to the real estate world. But when you're sitting in that seat as an operator, it is always really scary when you think, oh, is this technology coming in to take my job, right? We're seeing that right now with AI. And I think what has been proven time and time again is no, it doesn't take your job. It lets you do your job better. It
Yes.
takes all the mundane things, the
Mhm.
repetitive away, and allows you to shine and provide better service to your customers. And that's regardless of industry. But I think getting over that hump and that change management is always really challenging. I mean, so I run two technology companies. We have a tech savvy employee base. We rolled out a new customer service tool last year. So we're using technology, rolling out a new ticketing tool. And always, like, you roll this out and you're 2 weeks out and you get an email from someone on the team saying, this was a huge mistake. We have to roll it back. Right. Right. Like, and like we have very tech forward employees, of course.
Mhm.
And you still get that, right? It's like change is hard for everyone, period.
Mhm.
But I think, I'm always of the mindset of I know it's real. I know it always gets worse before it gets better. So 2 weeks,
Sure.
yes, like you have just found the limitations of your new system.
You're working out the bugs.
Yeah, you're working out the bugs, all these things. Let's talk in 4 weeks and in 6 weeks. And it's funny because I almost never get another email at 4 weeks and 6 weeks when you're rolling out a new pool because people adjust. You start to see the efficiencies and you settle in. You're like, my job's fine. It's better, right? I'm doing less of the things that I don't enjoy doing, and I can focus on the things I do enjoy doing. And I think you can apply that like change management, like adoption and mindset to any tool you're deploying in any industry. So is that your leasing software? Is that your PMS? Is that your we switched from Gmail to Outlook, right? Like any of those tools, like there's always this initial backlash to it. But if you're doing it for the right reasons, you're setting it up correctly, you're going to gain efficiencies and you'll get that that relief from your employees once you get over that adoption hump.
I think once people realize that this is really going to help me shine, it's going to enhance my value to the organization versus, oh, this is going to take my job away. No, it's going to help you to do a better job, not stress as much because you've got the tools and support that you need, and it's going to actually help you be the best that you can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've now seen that, over the course of our respective careers in real estate, where it's going from instituting small point solutions to having your entire operation in some type of software, and continuing to see that evolve, especially right now. I think, of course, the buzzword is AI, and how is that going to change our tools today, and what our teams do on a day-to-day basis?
I think that's a really good question, because you say AI, AI, AI. Well, tell me specifically how you would implement it. And I think that really leads me to the question of what core industry problem that you set out to solve when you decided to build an AI virtual agent across both ShowMojo and Tenant Turner.
Yeah. So I'll start with, for those in the audience who aren't familiar with ShowMojo and Tenant Turner, I'll start with kind of an overview of what we do and the area that we fill in the leasing space, right? So essentially, from the time a listing or a space is available to the time a lease is signed is where our technology fits into your process. So we start by having deep integrations with the PMS, with our PMS partners. We have long-standing relationships with them and two-way integration. So that's really like the starting point, right? Is getting your data from your source of truth into our systems in a secure and robust and reliable way.
I love that you said secure.
Yeah.
That's super important. I love it.
Yes, I think there's a lot of tools out there. Some are using, Chrome extensions or the public-facing API documents. And I think, when you're evaluating providers, something to ask is, how is your integration set up? Because a native integration will have access to fields that are not available in the public API. So you can transfer more data, and you'll have, higher layers of reliability and security in those native APIs, and more robust functionality.
I definitely think as AI is being utilized more and more commonplace, people are finally thinking forward. You're already thinking, right? But they're finally going, oh, I need to make sure my company information is secure. But you're so far ahead of that, so many steps.
Well, we're all right. We're very focused on the leasing experience and providing a great, efficient, and secure process in that space. So that's always something that our entire team is working on, versus, nowadays, if you're vibe coding something, do you have all the knowledge to build a really secure system? I think that's something to always be considering. What are you missing? That if you were specialized in this space, you would be catching, right? But so we start,
and that's so important across any industry. But I feel like, as we touch on SFR, and we mentioned not everyone's, but there's a fear of change and a fear of this. And there's definitely a fear where AI is concerned about what going to happen to my information, right? And so, I'm really glad to hear you say that. And I know that that's an important nugget for, people that are watching, that you guys have, made that a priority and taken care of that. So that's something they don't have to worry about.
Yeah, we should have like a whole discussion around fraud, because
right?
we can get to that.
There's some good fraudsters in the SFR world.
There's some crazy things happening, and we're always working to iterate and protect against that. But so we start with that PMS integration, and then we do the syndication. So we're sending your information out, or your listings out, to all the ILSs, and then we handle all the prospect inquiry and responses. So as they reach out and inquire about a space, we're automatically responding on your behalf. And I think most importantly, pushing them through your workflow to assign lease. So pre-qualifying them and making sure that they hit the standards that you've laid out in your listing.
That's huge.
And self-scheduling. And so you're not getting those emails of, are you free at Wednesday at 2 p.m.? Instead, your calendar is synced. It's optimized if you're doing a company joint or self-guided. we can cluster those showings and massively reduce no-shows as well through this rapid follow-up and confirmation. But all of that's taking place without your team answering a lot of really mundane questions. So really moving to that self-service and pushing them through your funnel. And then ultimately after they, we're involved in the showing with access control and ID verification, and then do a lead nurturing campaign afterwards to ensure that that prospect stays engaged, moves to a lease, and also can explore alternative properties within your portfolio if they're not moving forward with that unit. So that's really where we play. So in terms of relating that to AI and what we are building into our platforms and what we have recently launched is, I think the core message for leasing and what the goal is revolves around speed and consistency. So how do you use AI to enhance your speed and consistency in your leasing process? So that was kind of our overarching theme in terms of how we want to use an agentic model. So we see 70% of prospective tenants are searching for spaces outside of business hours. And I think another key fact is that 65% of prospective tenants rent with the first property to respond to them.
Interesting.
Yeah, so AI is great at solving
Talk about a nugget.
Yes.
That's great information.
Isn't that wild? So you're
It is.
looking at 9 p.m. on Tuesday. Whoever responds to you first has a 65% likelihood that they're going to get the lease with that prospect.
Well,
That's incredible.
previously
How do you make sure that you're the first to respond, right? And
in my roles as a BDM, for many, many years, when you're working with investors, that have, especially the smaller investors that have a few properties, or maybe they're emotionally attached to a property, educating them on the value of self showings with I've worked for companies that use ShowMojo, and, really educating them on that value and why that's important, and how quickly how much quicker they're going to lease their property if they use that versus having to wait till 9:30 a.m. the next day for somebody to come out there. And maybe an agent can meet you, maybe they can't. But it was definitely for a few years, an obstacle, but you could just see of their repetitive conversation year after year. And then the proof, like you just said, 65%, that's huge. So, I'm glad to see the adaptation of users has grown, as I'm sure that number is going to continue to grow.
Absolutely. That's a huge number. 65%. I mean, that's astounding number. And it kind of leads, you already pretty much answered my next question is, what early data or customer feedback has stood out the most? Well, you pretty much answered that. Good grief, 65%. That's insane. Is there any other really notable things you noticed once you started digging into the data you're getting back?
well, so ShowMojo and Tenant Turner have been responding on behalf of our customers for over a decade, right? So we've always been focused on that speed to lead and trying to get responses to your prospective renters as quickly as possible. I think the difference between what we've been offering the last 10 years and using an AI model as the kind of delivery mechanism of that is how that comes across in the expected experience from the prospect. So rather than getting asked yes, no, or click a link, it's more conversational in nature. And you can get more instantaneous responses for questions that are outside of the book a tour, right? Once they're like, no, I'm not quite ready to book the tour. I have 3 questions. Now they're waiting for a human. And instead, that's when the AI agent steps in and can respond to all your policy related questions, things in your listing, suggest other units. And that just makes it really much more conversational and keeps them engaged. So we were doing the instantaneous response and pushing them into a process. And now this will allow you to deviate and answer questions that don't follow that typical flow. So to me, it's really exciting. Right now, we convert from a lead to a scheduled showing at 51% nationwide. And so the AI agent will only enhance that. So essentially, right now, when leads are really low, we're seeing leads in like basically free fall decline for 5 straight years. How do you make the most of everything you bet that comes your way?
Yeah.
And I think the AI agent is going to enhance that conversion rate, so you can do more with less.
Mm-hmm. When you said speed for lead, I think of the Tom Cruise movie Top Gun, where it's like, I feel the need for speed, and I'm like, oh no, we need to replace this for I feel the lead for speed, the lead to speed, or speed to lead.
Yeah, well, I'm sure, Tanya, you mentioned being a BDM before. I mean, really, in any sale process, right? It's how fast can you get to your potential buyer, and in this case, it's a renter. Um, there is one study. It's not real estate specific, but there's a study by MIT that says if you connect with this prospective buyer within 5 minutes of them inquiring, you're 100 times more likely to close a deal.
That is
Right?
incredible.
It is wild. So in the past, what does that mean for your leasing team? Right? It means that when their phone rings at 9 p.m. and they're like, oh, I'm at dinner, I don't want to answer this. And they feel like but they don't want to, but they feel like they should. That gut feel is right. They should answer it. If they want to fill that space, they should answer the phone, right? So how do today we use technology to make it so that they're not answering their phone at 9 p.m.?
I've got a great question for you. How do you balance automation with the human touch that property managers and people still value in that leasing process? So where do you see that AI might not be there yet for replacing the human touch? What examples are you seeing?
I think there's a lot of talk around like human in the loop with AI, right? So, and that's where 100% where we want to play, right? We want all the mundane, all the repetitive, all the like this large administrative burden taken off your team so that they're not answering those questions like we talked about, like, are you free at 2 p.m. on Wednesday? Your calendar is digital. So that question's easily responded to. So you remove that like chatter, right? And that noise. And so what remains instead of an inbox with, 360 unread emails is, 5 unread emails. And they're all things that can't be answered through structured data and through the AI agent. And so those are the things that are left for your team to make a judgment on. And those are time consuming and they're service heavy questions. And so that's what you want your team doing, right? Is focusing on the things that require human judgment and aren't, easily read in a listing and just being surfaced. So I think that really enhances the value of the people within your process and the value that they can bring to the renters. And it all leads up to having that prospective renter have the best first experience and first impression of you and your team as possible, right? Because it's essentially setting the relationship as the property manager and resident moving forward. Is how did they respond to me? Was it timely? Did they have a clear path forward? And when I wanted to reach one of their teammates, am I able to? And by removing all that administrative burden and giving them instantaneous responses, you're giving them, you're building a reputation that you're going to respond to them quickly. You're going to give them all the information that they need. And that when something requires judgment, your team's not bogged down with all that other stuff. So they're able to respond quickly, engage, and provide high level of service. So I think that's really how you utilize humans in relation to AI and how you use the coupling of the two to really add value.
We do.
Back to what you were saying, like I feel like too, in the leasing process, whether from whatever aspect you are, when you also remove the human element and ability to judge from anything that has to do with fair housing, right? So that's like something that you don't have to worry about the PM getting their hand smacked or the leasing agent or something like that. There's no, when you set something up within, an automation system, then you remove any judgment, anything like that too, which is a huge plus for a lot of these companies, because when you're trying to do, 100% human in an application process, or you're seeing things in person or photos or something like that, sometimes it can be hard to remove some of that for certain people. And that just eliminates it altogether, which is a huge plus.
Absolutely. And that's
Big plus.
when it comes to like setting up the agent, we are feeding it the most relevant fair housing practices and laws. So that's something that we've been working with our attorneys with in order to ensure that we're training it on proper policies, and that it is always reacting to and changing to those policies, because they are rapidly changing right now. So what are the right answers? And also, if there's a specific question, can you get it to a human in order to make that final call if there's gray area? But for sure, yeah, compliance is a huge reason, right? Is humans all react differently to different things. So if you want, I think the key is consistency, right? If you want a consistent response, technology is going to provide that.
So what do you see coming then the next year or two, for the leasing teams that we were talking about, the leads being down, if you're struggling with the lead volume or the bandwidth? It seems like leads have been down consistently over the last couple of years for the first time in a while.
Yeah. I mean, I think things worth calling out in terms of market trends. So with ShowMojo, we do aggregate and anonymize all of our data. So that's everything from syndication through the lease. And we write it up in quarterly data reports, and I do a webinar every quarter on it. So if you're looking for the latest leasing trends, that's a great thing to tune in to. And we write a white paper as well. And so what we're seeing is, we saw pretty much an incredibly tight PM-friendly leasing market in 2021. That was kind of the hottest point coming out of COVID, right? And since then, what we've seen is every single year since 2021, we've seen days on market increase, we've seen leads decrease, and we've seen scheduled showings decrease. Now, I think there's really two silver linings to that. One is that looking at Q1 data that we just got 23 days ago, that it's starting to plateau. So the growth of, or the rate in which the market is softening or worsening is starting to decline. So we're starting to see a little bit of a flat line. So hopefully that means we're at least a plateau or potentially an inflection point for improvement in the next couple quarters. So that's one silver lining. I think the other is conversion rate. So that's, all our data is from people who are using leasing automation. So what we're seeing is a massive improvement in conversion since 2018. So nearly, I think over a 20% improvement, like from a 30% conversion rate to a mid 50s, and from a lead to a scheduled showing. And so what that shows you is how effective the technology has gotten. And, with the innovation that we're packing into our product this year, that's only going to get better. So I think the key here is when leads are in a free fall, and you have fewer and fewer leads, and days on market are increasing at a rapid rate. How do you take the limited volume, top of funnel volume that you have and turn it into a lease as fast as possible? And that's where that conversion rate comes in. And that conversion rate and the growth of that conversion rate is what shows you how effective technology can be in helping make that a reality, right? And being that 65% that responds first is the key and is what's going to enhance that conversion rate. So I just can't emphasize that enough in terms of that speed to lead. I think the other thing was optimizing your listing, right? Is your rental rate correct? And do you have metrics that immediately tell you that activity is too low and adjusting in real time, not waiting till you're on the market 40 days before you drop the rent, right? Mm-hmm. So monitoring those stats and ensuring that you're positioning the listing correctly because you only have so many eyeballs that are out there right now.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to ask. Do you have what kind of communication or info do you put out on a regular basis for them to make adjustments? And that's really important because I think sometimes, people say you have a large company, like we mentioned HRG earlier, you have all these properties on market. Sometimes, it's important to get prompted, right? Be able to get the notification. Hey, there's been no showings on this property. Has been listed for 8 days. We need to examine, maybe go through a list of potential reasons or is it price? Is it whatever?
So we see a few things that can help optimize your listing essentially. So one is pricing. That's kind of the number one lever to pull. What we see is a huge gap in terms of days on market for those that need a price reduction versus those that clear at the initial asking rent. So you see, I think it's I don't have it in front of me. So I think it was for first quarter 24 median days on market if it does not require a rental rate reduction, and then you're I think closing in or over 50 days for those that need a rent reduction. And we're seeing rent reductions happen on I think 30 to 40% of listings right now. So quite a large percentage, and it has a dramatic impact on days on market. So I think the key here is monitor especially your first 7 days of activity and the velocity. So how many leads do you have per days on market? How many showings do you have per days on market? If you can get your impression data from the large ILSs, how many impressions am I getting on my listing? And if it is too high or too low based on your other properties, make an adjustment right away. And ideally, have it in your contract with your owners that you can make rent reductions without approval within a certain percentage band. And that way you're not waiting for approval and the clock is ticking, and you're losing money. So being able to make those decisions rapidly is important. And then I think there's a couple other marketing type takeaways. It's you should have a title and have a description. If you are missing a title and you're missing a description, your days on market will go up. You should have, not overly verbose or wordy titles. Sorry. And don't have your rental rate in the title. It actually is a detriment if you have the asking rent. With the description, it's up to 400 words. Between 50 and 400 words. Really, you're going to see your optimal days on market. And photos, 10 quality photos performs better than having 20 plus photos.
Yeah,
you really want to focus on what features matter, and highlighting those and having quality photos is important. We did a case study with Planomatic that does professional photography for SFR rental.
Yes. Familiar with them, yes.
We love those guys. They're very fun to work with.
Yes.
But we used Atlas Real Estate and we used their Colorado properties. They do professional photos for some and not for others. So there was a natural A/B test. Those that they used Planomatic photography for had 80% more leads.
That's incredible. Are you seeing a difference between staging versus not staging in those photos?
So that we haven't dug into, but that's something I would love to look
I
into.
think so too. I have been seeing where they give you the option, like you can stage it, see it staged and not staged.
Yep.
And that's really interesting to me. I really like that. Kind of gives
Yeah.
them, I noticed that it's kind of hard sometimes for people to be visual, to see the potential of a space. And I really like that feature because it gives them an added value of seeing what can be done with that space.
Yeah. Well, and you walk into a vacant space and it's always seems smaller than when it has furniture in it, right? So
Yes.
you have to fight that perception as well, and virtual staging can help that.
Mm-hmm.
So I've definitely seen where, the rooms are vacant and they give you the virtual staging option. But I wonder, can you do that in reverse? Like where you have like, say, you go in, 'cause especially for a turn, right? You go in, or maybe somebody wants to pre-market the property and you go in and it's like a disaster. Can you take away like all the kids' toys and stuff like that are around and the dishes in this thing?
Correction.
Yeah. So Tonya, that's actually something we're working on, is like a photo optimizer.
Love that.
You can basically clean a room. And I was testing it. I was like, make my bed. I was like, taking
Now if they could actually physically do that, that would be
great.
amazing.
And I was like, God, somebody needs to come make my bed though.
I know.
I know, right?
But yes, that's something for the second half of the year. Something we're really focused on is taking all these insights we have from millions of leased units across our two platforms and saying, how do we utilize this massive set of historical data to provide suggestions to our customers in order to optimize the performance of their listing. So a photo enhancer is one example of something we're working on to help enhance your photos. Rental rate suggestions saying you're in the 90% band of comps versus 20, you're underpriced, you're going to see X more activity if you were to lower that. Having listing descriptions, like prompts and structure that will help you write great descriptions and optimize descriptions. That's all in play for the second half of the year in terms of what we're going to be building. We also, the agentic AI model, having a chatbot, having a text responder, is kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of how you incorporate AI into a customer-facing product. We plan on implementing AI models into analytics so that you can ask questions of your data.
I love that. Absolutely.
It's going to have your in-house data analyst, right?
Yes.
And so I think that's a really exciting place for AI to take us, and something that, as two leading providers in this space with 10 plus years of historical data, something that we can provide, unique benchmarking and suggestions to our customers that newer entrants cannot.
Yes, and they're viable because they are based off of pure data. They're not just an idea you pull out of the air and say, "Oh, let's try this. Let's see if it works." You've got viable information based off real data. I love them.
Well, and two, I feel like all the things you mentioned, like that's going to help the PMs, like when it comes to being able to pre-market something or pre-lease it, sometimes sight unseen, if somebody wants a particular property. Another question I was going to ask, and it's not a long question, but, I know you seem to have a lot of data in your research. Do you think that some of the reasons that, especially post-COVID, that the tenant or resident leads are down, are the residents staying longer in the property?
So, we don't have specific data on retention because we're always focused on when a unit is available. But really, I think it's just a matter of supply and demand that, during those high demand times in COVID, it triggered a wave of development. Of course, more in the boom bust kind of Sunbelt markets than others. But it just triggered this wave of investment and development and, over delivery of specifically luxury multifamily units that have flooded the market. And so I think when you look at days on market, you look at vacancy rates, you do right now see markets that are much more heavily impacted than others. So you're seeing big winners, markets that have stayed pretty tight in the Northeast and the Midwest, and you're seeing those sprawl markets really soften at a rapid rate. And so I think more so than retention, it is just delivery and supply. I think, of course, first thing as a PM, focus on retention, right? If you never have a vacant unit, then you're optimizing your PRL. Especially now when asking rates are dropping, every vacancy you have, you can lose on your rent roll. And so focus on retention, and cutting deals with your existing residents is, of course, the most efficient way to keep your units leased. So I think that should always be first and foremost a focus. But I think it's not the cause of the issue. That's really the supply.
Yeah, absolutely. I love data-driven decisions. Well, as we wrap things up, what advice, since we're on the SFR She-Suite, what advice would you give to women looking to step into leadership in PropTech?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know as you ladies know, right? It's a very male dominated industry, real estate as a whole, whether on the technology or on the operator side. It's an industry that I love and, have dedicated my career to. But I think in any male dominated industry, what we need is female leaders to rise up the ranks and set examples for the future generation of women to come take over. So I think, you just go for it. You buckle down, work hard, bring great ideas to the table, and you'll find in your career that some people love those ideas, embrace them, put them into action. Like, invest in those people, stick with them. Like, those are the people that are going to help your career. And now, sitting in the CEO space, I feel so lucky to be in this space right now, because my peers, like my peer vendors, have been incredibly helpful. Like, I have recurring meetings with complementary providers in the space where we just once a month get together, spitball, exchange ideas, what's working, what's not working. And that has been so incredible to have that support from primarily male CEOs. And I think, as more and more women rise up the ranks, we'll be able to have that peer network of women supporting each other even more so. So I'm excited to see that. But I think something that all women in leadership positions should think about is, how do you continue to develop your female employees and give them the tools and give them the flexibility to have that growth within their own career as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Great point. Yeah. Great point. Well, it says a lot about you too, and just, your confidence and your humility, like you're saying you have those meetings on a regular basis with even, your competitors in the space. I know, we've all played,
but our complementary vendors.
Complementary vendors. Sorry. I don't mean, that was a bad word. Yeah. Shame on me. But I try to have those. They're not on a regular basis, but when you're at a show where you see some of my dearest friends are, offer similar servicing, people that I respect and stuff within the industry. And it's so important to do that. And it just helps you reevaluate. Maybe they've got some feedback that, or some insight into something. It's there's definitely enough sand in the sandbox for everyone. And it just helps us all become better. At the services that we bring.
Communities like NARPM are incredible, right? Yeah. Both, I think I sat at a round table with, I think, 6 PMs. And one PM did not want to say what their tech stack was. They were like, that's my secret sauce. And then everybody else started exchanging notes and saying, this is working, this isn't working. And ultimately you learn so much from your peers. And if you give 3 pieces of good advice and take one away for yourself to implement, that's still a win, right? And having their business grow for the most part isn't going to have any negative detriment on your own. And so I think taking that mindset of growth and of sharing and of being open and transparent is, a huge advantage to growing a business in any space. So I love seeing that at NARPM with PMs exchanging ideas amongst themselves. But that's what, those meetings with other vendors in our space are for me, right? It's we're selling to SMB PM. What do they like? What do they not like? What's important to them right now? How's the market shifting? Because ultimately they have another perspective. Our goal is to serve our customers and provide as much value as possible. And so if exchanging those ideas helps either of us get there, we're achieving that goal.
Right. I love it, my friend.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank you, Vanessa. I want to thank our audience, and I want to thank you for tuning in and supporting our podcast. I also want to say, if you're a property manager looking to stay connected in the industry and see how other incredible women leaders are setting the pace, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to share this with someone in your network and follow along for more conversations with the women leading our industry forward, like Vanessa Anderson.
Yes.
Well, thank you both for having me today. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
It is all our pleasure. Thank you so much.